Ferdinando Pacheco Perez, head of the EPI oil family in Italy. And the Knights of Malta and all of they're right in there with the crowd, her child, and Chris, the back, so far, these guys in now, their names on the document, you know, you see the list, one quick her name's there, no one really goes to investigate who she is. You know, the clues are there already. And one other thing I so far is you've got to understand that I know everybody kind of wants the drama. They want all of this, you know, it to be sexy, terrible, awful. You have to understand that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, when it comes to spectrum of the type of offenders they were both sadistic preferential pedophiles. They had a very significant interest in only children, and everything else was that was Jeffrey Epstein over that 10-year period before he was actually would have probably in 2 to 3 massages a day encountered maybe 8,000 plus charges. You know, as soon as he was arrested, he should have gone to prison straight away for a long time, but that didn't happen. Now, he was the main offender. Everybody wants everybody else to be offended, but a lot of these guys who were coming around with Jeffrey Epstein, yes, maybe they were hooked up. They were often hooked up with fully formed women who Jeffrey Epstein weren't interested in.
Yeah, so I want to go to Julie real quick. We're going to go on characters. You guys are good, giving us a lot of information. We really appreciate that. There's a lot of right-hand corner, that purple go button. Jim's going through that right now as well. Julius, as a former prosecutor, I want to know, one of the audience questions that we did get here is, okay, after all of this information, we're seeing Bill Clinton mentioned dozens and dozens of times in here. He spent a lot of time with Jeffrey Epstein. There are a lot of allegations in here. Would we know if there was any sort of investigation into him? Do we know if there's been any sort of investigation into him? And if so, why wouldn't he be indicted on anything?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, is that if there was enough information where law enforcement can prove that Bill Clinton actually engaged in sexual assault of a child, or participating in child sex trafficking, then he would have been investigated, he would have been prosecuted, and certainly after the fact, because a lot of these statutes of limitations run long after Bill Clinton was no longer president. So, that being the case, if there was enough information to suggest that Bill Clinton, or to actually not suggest, to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Bill Clinton was involved in these sex acts with minors, I think that would have come out by now.
Yeah, it's convenient to say, well, they're withholding all the other evidence they have in the confession. It's very convenient to make that decision. It's been caught in multiple lies. The Foundation funds way back from charitable organization. We know Ghislaine Maxwell was in the State Department. The connections are through the roof. And I agree with everything Johnny made about the intelligence. So, I mean, I guess we'll agree to disagree, but everything they have is not out there.
I think that Trump's Department of Justice would have certainly gone after the Clintons if they had
not if it all implicates the prosecutor on top, right? If everybody's connected, they wouldn't. That's just common sense, you know?
I don't think so, because a lot of crimes would be prosecuted at the local level, not at the federal level anyway.
Look, Trump's DOJ didn't go after Hillary Clinton for the crimes that they knew that she committed. So there's nothing that implicates that they would have gone after Bill Clinton for this. So I don't buy the argument that they had this information in hand about Clinton. It doesn't necessarily mean that he would have been tried. Yeah, why would Bill Barr do it when his father hired him to teach him New York prep? What was that connection? Like, it's clear this implicates multiple people, multiple parties, and people get fixated on one person or the other. But until we have full transparency, we don't know, and you cannot definitively say that. But I appreciate the comment.
I agree that there is full transparency with all of this. But quite honestly,
I haven't seen many reports from your newspaper asking for full transparency.
If we do know anything, though, it's that this type of behavior, this type of sex trafficking, this type of salacious and disgusting behavior doesn't have political sides, okay?
Both sides. Hunter Biden has sex trafficking.
Both sides of the aisle. I'm sorry, Nick.
So Julius, why hide this? why did they work so hard to hide this information for so many years if we don't even have all of it yet? We don't even have all of it. Why did they fight so hard against it? Why was this such a controversial thing for everybody involved? I mean, if you want full transparency, if you didn't do anything, then allow for full transparency. What's wrong with that?
I think that they just wanted they wanted the litigation at hand that prompted all of this information to come forward, if deposition after deposition, to be concluded first. To me, it's as simple as that. And now that that litigation has concluded, I think that the judge has ruled that it should come out. And quite honestly, I agree, full transparency is what we should have here, because I think that the information that's released in these documents can exonerate people just as much as implicate them. But whatever we have here, a lot of it is just insinuation, innuendo, and I think that we got to be careful because we don't live in a society where people should be convicted of crimes just on insinuation.
Well, you can make inferences into some of these people who deny these connections and ties to Epstein. They might not be guilty, but it looks bad that they have denied it on the record. Right?
Absolutely, and I think that that's why my earlier question about why are we talking about why the relevant, not all of the people that we're talking about right now are as relevant and as important and timely as others. You know, we're talking about Bill Clinton, we're talking about certain footballers, or like I said, David Copperfield, Sammy Sosa. Those are, it's interesting to find those names out, but really, I'm more interested in people that are relevant today.
The Clinton Global Initiative.
Look at Donald Trump, the presumptive Republican nominee at this point in time. I'm more interested in figuring out whether he was involved in this because he has much more influence in this day and age than any of these other people we're talking about.
By the way, just about Trump, let me read out a few more parts. By the way, Nick and Ryan, so someone from our team just said that Clinton was mentioned 6 times and Trump 5 or 4 and 6.
No.
Clinton was like 90 times.
Okay, just confirming. Okay. Just because I know you guys mentioned that before. Alright, so there's
125. 7 times. Can we keep raising that?
Ryan, can you do the top, like, do a tweet with the top names, mention how many times they're mentioned? That'll be interesting. So Nick mentioned a couple now, but yeah, do it into a post and tell us who are the top 5 names mentioned the most, or top 3, whatever it is. It'll be interesting, and maybe other notable names, how many times they mentioned to compare to Trump, etc. But let me read it back and forth here with one of the witnesses about Andrew, Prince Andrew. Who else? So, okay, this is referencing Virginia Roberts. Do you have any knowledge about whether Virginia Roberts...
Mario, Dershowitz made a statement that I think is interesting. This is what we need to call for.
Just now?
I hope Epstein made videos. There's been suggestion that Epstein made secret videos of the men who had sex in these houses and twins. I hope he did, and they are all revealed. Because they will prove I am not among them. I hereby waive this United States Epstein. So let's do it. Let's get at it. Let's release it all.
Hold on. When was that statement made?
He tweeted it. It's up top.
When?
This was back in July, like I said earlier. I don't know if it's true. He might well be guilty, but I agree at least with that position. The
Prodigal, quickly, Virginia had dropped the suit against Alan Dershowitz and had made the statement that she was, quote, very young at the time, very stressful, and in a very stressful and traumatic environment. And Mr. Dershowitz has from the beginning consistently denied the allegations, and I now recognize I may have made a mistake in identifying Mr. Dershowitz. So she has already said that she had made a mistake.
Well, actually, the mic with Brian, and then I'll read the...
Actually, no, she said she may have made a mistake, not that she made a mistake. I think we should really look at the procedural posture here. This was a civil lawsuit brought by Virginia Joffrey against Ghislaine Maxwell, etc. And it was for money. And so what we're looking at are depositions and evidence that was probably never tried, right? Because there was a settlement, at which point she probably agreed not to discuss many of these things, and she then said something about Alan Dershowitz as well. So one of the problems, Prodigal, with what you're saying is because these are sort of one-sided, as it were, they haven't been really tested anywhere, we are in a difficult position to assess them. I'm not saying any of these people are innocent, but it's not enough just to have, if you listen to some of these depositions, like, I don't remember, I don't know, he said this, these are hearsay, etc. It's really difficult, right? So part of me is thinking, like, what is full transparency? How do we get to that place? Because once again, you can't just say that these particular depositions do it for you, or maybe you can.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I think that it's clear through multiple times that they've seen a number of electronic drives and other video evidence from New York City townhomes. We need to know, what exactly is seized and, if it needs to be blurred or censored or redacted. Full transparency is needed. I think at this point, these people are powerful, whether it's in politics, whether it's in charity, whether it's in business. And if these people are guiding the economic and political trajectory of this nation, and they are potentially being blackmailed, it's a problem.
So we have Mr. your name's Derek Broward, who's doing a documentary on it. He's been covering it since 2017. I'm going to go to you, Derek. Let me read a quick excerpt here and then get your thoughts on what we've seen so far, Derek. I've got it written here. Sit back and forth with one of the witnesses. I'll just read small bits and pieces here and there. It's not too long. So, do you have any knowledge about whether Virginia Roberts is telling the truth about whether Maxwell directed her to have sex with Prince Andrew? So Andrew is probably implicated the most in these documents. It's an objection. No, only based on what I've read in the media, according to the witness. And Alan Dershowitz? Objection again. And the witness says the same. Prime ministers? No. Do you have any knowledge about whether Virginia Roberts is telling the truth about foreign presidents? No knowledge. Do you know whether Virginia Roberts is telling the truth about Maxwell forcing her to participate in an orgy with Prince Andrew and other underage girls in the island? No knowledge. Did Maxwell ever ask you to have a baby? No. No further questions. Thank you for your time. So maybe quickly, Tira, actually I'll go to Derek in this case. Derek, can you tell us, I want to get your general thoughts and everything, but tell us more who Virginia Roberts is for anyone in the audience that is not aware. There's a lot of focus on her in these documents. Derek, you got to unmute bottom left corner.
Sure, thank you for having me on. I appreciate you. Virginia is one of the many victims of the Epstein network, Ghislaine Maxwell, the whole network, as Johnny Bedmore pointed out, Israeli and other intelligence involved in this. And she's an Australian woman. She's been one of the most vocal victims for years now, and as that's where these documents are coming from, as somebody mentioned earlier. So I think that one point I wanted to make is that a lot of this information is coming out. None of it's really new. I think there's actually a lot of hype around this right now. It's good that everything's being talked about, but for those who've been kind of on the case or following since before Epstein was arrested and before his alleged murder, most of these names have been known. Jean-Luc Bonnell was an abuser involved in the modeling agency. That's a big part of this. I've written about the fashion and modeling world to the sexual assault pipeline, which does exist. You can find Epstein investing in various pageantry and even Donald Trump as well, Miss Universe. So there's that connections like that have been known. Most of this information has been known. What I think is important, though, is that we're getting a little bit more pieces of the puzzle. I'm sitting here reading through the documents myself as I'm listening to everybody, and I think we're just getting a little bit more background. We see some emails that appear to be from Ghislaine Maxwell herself. We're seeing more about the testimony. We see Ghislaine basically refusing to answer any questions. And, just, the other thing, I guess, that comes to mind, and I do want to shout out Johnny Bedmore for his specific research on some of the more kind of esoteric elements that not many people are looking into. But I just want to caution everybody to, as somebody else has said, that just because somebody's name is listed in here doesn't mean they're guilty of anything. We absolutely should, I think those of us in this call who consider ourselves independent journalists, should be putting microphones and cameras in these people's faces and asking them about these relationships, but we should not make the mistake of spreading bad information. I don't like to use the term misinformation because we know it's used against us, but it's true. There are a lot of people, especially on X and on the internet in general, who spread bad information and are just running with names as soon as they see it. So I think it's important just to kind of use that caution. Let's dig deep into this. Let's question the people who are listed. And I just want to mention for anybody who hasn't seen my work, I produced a documentary called Bringing Down Jeffrey Epstein back in 2018. I went and visited Epstein's house in 2018. Started researching him in 2017, and you can find that at my website, theconsciousresistance.com.
I appreciate it, Derek, and I've got a few questions for you, Ryan. I know you've got some big things here, Ryan.
Yeah, I don't even know how to say this. It's a little bit weird. I'm just going to say it. In one of the documents, there's an allegation that there's a new version in the Virgin Islands that Stephen Hawking participated in an underage orgy. So that's in one of the documents of Stephen Hawking.
Okay, I don't know how that body part doesn't work, though, does it?
Well, no, we don't know that, but on the other hand, we can't get to the truth of that because he lives dead.
Yeah, but going on the 4th of July,
but I'm saying-
there's another part of the document where they are requesting photographs of him, so that's what's about to talk about.
Yeah, but I'm genuinely asking, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know it sounds funny, but here I know he's passed away, but I'm saying that how's that? I'm saying it's not possible, no?
No, I don't think so. He had something. I'm not aware that he did. In fact, he had an affair, remember? With his assistant, and that's of course his wife. So I assume that means he was capable of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Was he? Hold on, so it was, Brian?
He wasn't a paraplegic. He had a form of ALS, as something like that, right? So I don't think that it didn't.
Okay, you've just cut out for a bit, so it's actually
Yes,
physically possible for...
yes, he did not, it wasn't like his limbs couldn't work. It was like he had ALS for many more years than most people do. It was sort of a medical miracle in many ways. But as I said, if you read his history, you'll see that he actually left his wife for another woman, etc. So I assume there was sexual intercourse.
The tweet is in the nest for anyone that's curious about the screenshot. I personally was shocked as well. It's hard to find these things. Can we ask Eric and John, because I agree, this is allegations and depositions not been proven, but based on your own research, which powerful political figures, business leaders were involved in the department of blacks? And, spent years of that, decades looking into this, I'm curious who you think are putting names that the public is asking for answers.
I'll just go real quick with that. I would say, if anybody wants to look at my Twitter page right now, you can see I've been spending a lot of time rehashing some of my previous work with Trump. I know that a lot of folks are focused on the Clintons, and I do think we should be. Of course, Bill Clinton's listed in there many times. But I do think there's a lot of folks turning a blind eye to the realities of Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, we have no hard evidence, but there were cases that were filed, lawsuits against Trump. One that was thrown out, and I report on this in the documentary, and those claims, of course, have not been proven. But a lot of Trump supporters really don't like to acknowledge that Trump was accused of some of the same abuse. Trump knew Epstein since the 1980s. He's quoted in Vanity Fair and other places saying that Epstein liked young girls. Trump, again, also involved in the pageantry industry, and I don't have any hard evidence to say he was involved in anything specific, but I just think that...
Let me just ask you real quick. In the documents that we're talking about today, how often was Trump mentioned and what were the references?
I haven't counted the total number of mentions, but I know that both Trump and Clinton are listed in these, so I'm not speaking to anything specifically out of this, but I think that's good.
I believe the number was 4. I think that's what we've counted so far, and it seems like he was asking about a visit to one of the Trump casinos, and he might be correct me if I'm
This is
wrong,
just
but
one lawsuit related to Virginia, not the whole totality of all the files on Epstein. Trump's also had 16 numbers listed in Epstein's black book. I mean, there's other cases. I'm not saying any of us know for certain, but I think, again, you can look into various claims, and one of the ones I've been researching right now is this claim that Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. It's a very suspicious claim. The source of it goes back to a few people, but one of them is James Patterson, who's a fiction author who wrote a book about Epstein and was a neighbor of his in Palm Beach. He also happened to be friends with Bill Clinton, wrote a fiction book with Bill Clinton, went on tour with Bill Clinton. So there's a lot of really interesting connections, and I just think that's one area we shouldn't let anybody go under the radar. Clintons, Trump's, and then as far as the Stephen Hawking stuff, that's another one that, like, a name that's been around for quite a while. His name's been listed in other documents. So most of this isn't new. We're kind of getting the nitty gritty, I guess, a little more details of these accusations. But again, we don't have any hard evidence beyond that. And I also think a kind of cold hard reality is that any evidence that would really implicate people at a higher level than we're getting now, my personal belief, would have been long destroyed before any of us even knew about this. Because Epstein was arrested back in 2005. That was when it was first going on, and the sweetheart deal and all that stuff. So anybody who was truly at some level where they were afraid of being exposed, like those tapes, for example, we have video of them raiding Epstein's Palm Beach house, and you see a lot of pictures, you see them collecting tapes. It's been a decade plus now, so the idea that we're suddenly going to get these truths, I think, is just, we shouldn't fool ourselves.
Derek, first, go ahead, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. Because I had another question for you, Nick. I have another question for you, Derek. By the way, Ryan just posted as well about 14 minutes ago that Al Gore, maybe you guys mentioned it. Al Gore was, according to these documents, was not seen on the island, because I know he's referenced earlier. And in terms of the Pope, just to be clear for everyone, there was no nude photos with the Pope. It was just a photo with Maxwell and the Pope was a publicly available painted photo that was just on the wall. That was part of the testimony. But going back to to what you're saying, Derek, you mentioned something earlier. There's a lot of false information that's being spread by different people. Can you share maybe the top 3 misconceptions or misinformation being shared right now?
Sure. I mean, I think that, okay, so for one thing, I tweeted this earlier, that there's so many Epstein documents, there's so many cases. You've got, the bank, the cases against JP Morgan, you got Deutsche Bank, you got the victims' lawsuits. I went to the civil lawsuit when Epstein was still alive back in 2018. And, I interviewed Bradley Edwards, the main attorney, years ago. You guys probably have seen this clip going around. It's taken out of context often. It's from my interview, where Bradley Edwards says that I reached out to Donald Trump. He's the only person that picked up the phone, and he was helpful, and this and that. And he said, I'll give you anything you want. So that's what Edwards told me. I asked Edwards again about the claim. Is there any proof that Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago? This is the lead attorney who's been investigating these claims for decades. And again, pointing to John Bedmore's work, he's got a lot to say about Edwards. But Edwards himself said he couldn't prove that claim. So I think that there's just a lot of information that needs to be revealed there. But a big one
Did he repent in regard to his previous words saying that Trump was helpful?
No, that's what he claimed, and I'm not trying to discount that. He just couldn't prove the claim that he was kicked out. But what I was getting to is that there's so many cases, I think that there's a lot of confusion. Like I see this hashtag EPSTEIN client list, and there's a lot of people who thought that's what was coming down to. They don't realize this is just one lawsuit and a much bigger, ongoing thing. So that there's confusion. You have the black room, you have the calendar. You've had various court cases where people and victims were naming names and things like that. This isn't like, a book of Epstein's clients that says this person abused this person. I think anything like that would have been destroyed long ago. So I think that's kind of one of the main things, is there's just confusion all around. And also, you're seeing people, even under your post, Mario, sharing old documents, like saying, here's the documents, and it's from 2019 from a different, civil trial. So there's a lot of that. There's just, I think, unfortunately, X is not always the best platform. It's beautiful in a lot of ways, but sometimes the information, I think it's getting mixed around, and bad information, salacious information does spread quicker than often the correction or the truth. It takes a little while.
But then what happens? The community knows it's there to correct that whenever someone makes a mistake, they lose their credibility. So we try our best to be as careful as we can. But I'm glad you pointed it out, because obviously a lot of people take things out of context or spread misinformation. There's something David Copperfield. So I was going to read it out, Ryan and Nick. Not sure if you guys read that part. But David was at a dinner at Steve's. There was another girl present who was young, and Joanna asked what school she went to, and Joanna did not recognize the school name until they hit college, because she said it was possible it was a high school-aged girl. Joanna said Copperfield questioned if I was aware that girls were getting paid to find other girls. Joanna testifies she heard Jeffrey call someone to try to find girls in Hawaii to send over to Frederick High. So that was the part, that first part was David Copperfield part that I just read out. What else is it? I don't know who David Frederick Fakai is.
He's a famous hairdresser.
Okay, there we go. Joanna testified Jeffrey told her Clinton likes them young, referring to girls, which we read already. Joanna, so by the way, Ryan, I'm going to tag you. This is a lot of nice bits and pieces to pull here, starting with Copperfield. I'm just going to tag you now. Alright, so we got here, Joanna testified that Jeffrey told her Clintons like them young, referring to girls, which Brian pointed out. That does not mean they're underage, but they're young, so maybe unethical, but illegal, we don't know, because young could be 18, 19, but not below 18. Joanna testifies that she was naked for 25-50% of all massages. Joanna's obviously one of the witnesses. She testified and victims. Joanna testified that Jeffrey made her perform sexual acts during massages, including sexual toys, and she had intercourse with him. Joanna testified that Nadia Marsikova and Maxwell were both with her in the USVI in 2005. Joanna testifies that Maxwell asked her to find other girls to perform massages at the house. She gave the name of a girl from a restaurant to Maxwell. Maxwell paid her $200. That's it. For the girl's name. Did Maxwell ever ask you to bring other girls over to Jeffrey? Yes. And I recall Maxwell giving me money to bring her over, which is known from before. Joanna testified that if a massage involved sexual acts, Jeffrey paid Joanna more than the normal $200. Don't know the amount. She testified the defendant called Emmy Taylor her slave, quote-unquote slave. Later she testified that Jeffrey, quote, he told me one time Emmy was sleeping on the plane and they were getting ready to land, and he went and woke her up, and he thought that meant he wanted a sex act. So she started to unzip his pants, and he said, no, you just have to wake up for landing. Oh, wow. Joanna said the defendant flew her in the helicopter from Main Island to the USVI. The USVI is what? Is the island?
United States Virgin Islands. United States Virgin
Thanks,
Islands.
Tira.
The island was Little St. James. That's Epstein Island in USVI. That's what that's referring to.
So we got here. Joanna said she believes that what Virginia's saying about being abused by Jeffrey and Maxwell, quote, basically, that I believed her, even though she never spoke to me specifically about what was going on, and that once I learned everything that happened based on reading the police report, I believed her side of the story. Question: what experience in the house helped you form your opinion that what Virginia is saying is true? Answer: by the way, you know Jeffrey being open with me about what other girls did for him, and just continue to get the rest of it. But yeah, so Brian's working on a few posts that summarize what we just read. Is the David Copperfield part out?
No, it's going out together. It's one shot right now.
I do want to do one just for David Copperfield separate and then do the rest in one minute. But yeah, that's just another name implicated. It's just crazy the amount of names. Derek, like the list continues to expand. Your thoughts?
Well,
Who do you think is who concerns you the most? Is it Prince Andrew by the looks of it? Do you think he'd be implicated the most by all this? Is it Choice? Is it Clinton?
I definitely think that the Prince Andrew angle is one that, I mean, it's disturbing, and for those who've researched this broader topic, not just the Epstein network, but the fact that we live in a world where there are pedophiles in high-up religious positions, political positions, government, etc. This goes back to the fact that the royal family themselves have been accused of similar things, with Prince Andrew's brother Charles, now King Charles, being friends with the longtime pedophile over in the UK, Jimmy Savile, and other accusations related to the crown themselves, including people accusing the Queen. I'm not even going to really get into any of that. Not saying it's all backed up by strong evidence, but absolutely, King Charles spent time and lived and said he was his best buddy with Jimmy Savile. So Prince Andrew and the whole royal family has some experience in this world. So I think that's definitely a strong connection. It's one that unfortunately I think our world just cannot allow to come to the surface. The Queen is gone. Prince Andrew has basically been allowed to walk free, other than some undisclosed sum for Virginia, and lawsuits related to the accusations against him. And we're never going to fully know the truth. I mean, he went on national mainstream TV and claimed that he doesn't sweat. He can't sweat, so the story that Virginia claimed about him being very sweaty while he was abusing her could have never happened. And we just all sort of accepted it. I mean, I think it's kind of one of the big things that really frustrates me about this whole thing is that even Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. It's all basically become a meme that we just sort of laugh at. It turned into a joke on Saturday Night Live. It's a hashtag. It's something that we put on T-shirts or whatever. But at the end of the day, these people run free. And I wanted to mention, in case folks didn't catch this today, this was reported by the